Hello, movie and TV fans. I am the movie guru, and this week I have an interview with executive producer of Son of a Critch, Andrew Barnsley. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Nice to speak with you.
Of all the terrible days of my lonely childhood, the first day of junior high was the worst.
Ow, I'm taking your Walkman, dick.
Way to go, sis!
Were you bullied?
How'd you ever guess?
I had a bully when I was about your age, and then one day just stopped.
What happened?
He died of the Spanish flu. It was a different time.
Now, Son of a Critch is ranked as the #1 scripted program on the CBC, and since its premiere, it has ranked one of the top 5 most watched comedy series overall, and season 2 was the most watched Canadian comedy series. And the CW is bringing Son of a Critch to the US for the first time. Congratulations, man. That's great.
It's exciting. Yeah, I'm really proud of the show and the team that has brought us here. It's pretty awesome.
And I want to say I love that era, right? The 80s.
Yeah. Isn't it great? Like
Yeah.
Walkmans and yeah, it's so fun.
It is, having lived that is one thing, but then getting to see it is another thing, and it brings back so many memories. And so the first thing I wanted to ask you was, what was one of your fondest memories from that time in the 80s?
Yeah, well, I'm the same age as Mark, so I definitely connect to it and relate to it. It was just so different. And I have kids right now who are teenagers, and you look like life is good here, like for with the era we are in right now, but it's just, you can't compare it to the 80s when there was no internet and you didn't have a cell phone, and your parents would just say, be home when the streetlights go out. And there was this liberty of life then, where you could kind of go and get lost and maybe get into a little bit of trouble and this and that just doesn't exist anymore. And also, I think about the kids in the neighborhood, we all had bikes, and it would be like, who can make the biggest jump and how far can you go and who's going to wipe out and stuff like that. And no helmets, nothing.
No
it was
safety
just
protocols at all, right? Just
nothing.
whatever.
I
Mine
miss
was
that.
Of course. It was a great time. It was a lot of freedom, and it was innocence, right? I mean, the things that you did, even with Mark, and the way, I think the family has a very interesting dynamic on the way they see him, and then in turn, from his perspective, the way he sees them. And
Yeah.
it's like, wow, it and also too, I felt like watching the episodes, the struggle is real for kids. I remember there being some moments where I'm like, oh, this is tough. And looking at some of the cartoons now as an adult, I'm like, these cartoons were dealing with adult problems.
Yeah. Right. Totally.
But I want to say this series is a heartfelt window into the life of a child who is much older on inside than he is 11 years old. And the comedy and self-depreciation to win friends and connect with the small collection of people in his world. And I want to say I watched the first episode again, and when he got on the bus and he said, wow, man, these kids are big, right? He said, even does that kid have a kid?
That's all right.
There was no going back now. And apparently there was no sitting down either. Wait a minute. Does that kid have a kid?
What are you looking at, Flip?
Oh man, I was like, wow, just a great spin on comedy from his perspective, and great timing, on the young man who plays Mark, and so it's really really great. But yeah, what can you tell me about that family dynamic though, about how they see him and how Mark sees them?
Yeah, well, Mark as a character is just trying to find his place in the world, right? He's really trying to find his place in school. He's trying to find, and he's entering adolescence, and he's discovering what love is, what acceptance is, trying to figure out like musical taste. Like he's so disconnected from kind of his fellow classmates. But at the end, like, but it all comes from a place of innocence, like you said, but it comes from the family, it comes from a place of love. It's such a loving household. It's kind of, you look at it a little bit, maybe it's a little bit dysfunctional. There's 3 generations living in under one roof. There's a quirkiness. There's, you know, the mom is, she's always at a high volume. But they just care about themselves so much, about the family so much, and they love each other so much. But yeah, and I think so much of that, you know, that's Mark, and that's sort of who, it was so important for Mark to tell an honest story and to tell an authentic story. This truly is a story about his family, and he wanted to honor that. He wanted to respect it. And you can imagine Mark Critch actually plays his dad in the show. And the set that we built, the house, is pretty much an exact replica of the house he grew up in. And so he's going into hair and makeup. He comes out of hair and makeup. He looks like his dad. He walks into a house that is an exact replica of the house that he grew up in. Some of the props and some of the furniture is actually from his family home as a kid. So it's really, there's just a kindness and a warmth to all of it. And, you know, I love the dynamic. I love the characters. And, you know, that the relationship between young Mark and his grandfather, to me, is really kind of the heartbeat of the show. And to me, it's so special to watch. And I'm really excited that people are having a chance to watch it in the US right now.
So the cast, for anyone who hasn't seen the show yet, is Mark Critch, I guess, and it says here, who also is in the show.
He's the dad, yeah.
He's the dad. Benjamin Evans Ainsworth, you know, Go Evans. My name is Evans, so Go Evans, who plays Mark Critch as a child. Claire Rankin plays Mary Critch, the mother and wife. Clayton Bow, who plays Mark Critch Jr., and the legendary Malcolm McDowell, who you said was Pop Critch. And he, you know, he's from other movies that you might be familiar with, like Clockwork Orange.
Yeah.
So
Wow,
how did you get him on board?
I mean, it's an incredible story, and it really is all due to Mark Critch and Tim McAuliffe, who created the show and wrote the pilot. We knew that was such an important role to cast for the series, and we were looking in Canada to find somebody to take on that role, and we just didn't have any. There were no home runs. So there were people that could have worked and sort of thing. But so we decided to broaden our search, and we hired a UK casting directors to there's a lot of connectivity in terms of culture between Newfoundland and the UK. So like maybe we'll find somebody there. And the casting directors were like, well, let's see if we can get, you know, this in front of Malcolm McDowell. And we were all just like, no way, like that, there's no chance. Anyway, they were able to get the script in front of Malcolm. Malcolm read it and instantly was like, I have to be a part of this. This is a show that I need to be a part of, and I need to be the role of Pop. And he just instructed his team to figure out a way to make it work, and it did. And we are so lucky to have him. He brings so much to the series, but also to the culture on set. And he's a delight to work with.
Yeah. You know, he looks like a lot of fun, you know, even on the show with his comebacks and his timings, right, and his, you know, gestures. I mean, it is really good. I want to change the interview a little bit and talk about a different topic. Here in the U.S., you know, we're having a writer's strike, and I know Canada is a little bit different. Can you explain some of the differences between, let's say, Canadian writers or, you know, writers that you might have had on your show, and how you guys either bring them in or how it's kind of set up?
Well, It's pretty similar. Like as a production company, we've worked with WGA writers and WGC writers, so Writers Guild of Canada. But right now, it is the WGA writers that are on strike, and so it's similar in nature how we engage and kind of how we work with them. I mean, it's really unfortunate that we're in this situation right now with both the writers and the actors, and I just hope for a quick resolution on all of it. It hasn't been quick, but hopefully soon. But yeah, no, I think, you know, we know, like, even the story about Malcolm, it's everything comes down to the written word, right? And it's just it's so important. And, you know, we want to make sure our writers are properly treated and respected and compensated, all of that kind of stuff. And yeah, I just really hope that we can get to a resolution on this, because it does impact us. Even though we're a Canadian company, we have projects with WGA writers, and we can't engage with them.
Okay. All right. Well, it's been great talking to you. I'm enjoying Son of a Critch, and I hope everyone watching this goes out and watches it and enjoys it as well. My last question before we leave is just, what is favorite episode of the season that's out now?
Okay, it's I think it's the episode that just aired, and Newfoundland, as I mentioned, is a pretty special place. It has a pretty unique culture. It was a culture that was really built up around the fisheries, around the cod fisheries, and in the 80s, the fish stocks were depleting, and the federal government intervened and put a moratorium on fishing. And so the government and the province really had to figure out, like, how to, you know, how do you reboot the economy? How do you find a new economic engine to take the place of the fisheries industry? So the province and the government kind of took a lot of chances and were trying things out. And one of the things that they did, and I think this is in episode 4 of season 1, is they had this idea that one way to create an economic engine was to invest in greenhouses, hydroponic greenhouses that grew cucumbers. So it's got to be one of the only places in the world that actually had publicly subsidized cucumbers growing.
Oh, this is a real thing. Oh my God.
Real thing. Yeah.
Okay, well, that's great. Well, we'll leave the fans with that. Please go check out Son of a Critch. Andrew, it was great talking to you. Take care.
Thanks, Evan. You too, man.
Bye.